Fort McClellan, Alabama, January 1946. An American doctor kneels beside a dying Japanese woman. She lies on the cold floor of the medical ward, her breath shallow, her body consumed by fever. 47 Japanese prisoners watch as he slides his arms beneath her frail body and lifts. He carries her across the ward perhaps 20 feet and lays her gently on a hospital bed. His movements are careful, professional, tender. And then the women begin to weep. Not quiet tears, but raw, uncontrollable sobbing that fills the ward. Some drop to their knees. Others clutch at walls for support. The doctor looks up confused. "What's wrong? What did I do?" One woman manages to speak through her tears. "You lifted her. You touched her. You carried her like she mattered." "Of course I did," he says simply. "She's my patient." To understand why this moment shattered everything these women believed, we must go back 4 months, to the day they learned the war was over. August 1945, Saipan. The Pacific heat hangs thick and wet, the kind of heat that makes breathing feel like drowning. The air shimmers above the dirt roads, creating mirages that promise water where there is none. 47 women stand in a loose group near the remains of what was once a military depot. The building behind them is a skeleton, its roof gone, its walls pockmarked with bullet holes. Palm trees stand like broken umbrellas against the sky, their fronds shredded by shrapnel. They wear whatever remains of their clothing. Some still have pieces of uniforms. White blouses stained brown with dirt and sweat. Dark skirts torn and patched until the original fabric is barely visible. Others wear simple cotton dresses that have been mended so many times they are more thread than cloth. Many are barefoot, shoes wore through months ago. The soles of their feet are cracked and calloused, the feet of people who have walked too far with too little. They are nurses, clerks, teachers, comfort, station workers, support staff. Women who serve the Imperial Army in dozens of small ways, doing the invisible work that keeps armies functioning. Women who were sent thousands of miles from home to serve an empire that has now collapsed around them like a house of cards. The radio broadcast came through yesterday. The Emperor's voice, thin and crackling through static, speaking words no one ever thought they would hear. Surrender. The war is over. Endure the unendurable. The soldiers who promised to defend these women are dead or surrendered. The empire that sent them here has collapsed. And now they wait clustered together like frightened birds to learn what will happen to them next. They have been told stories. Everyone has been told stories. The Americans are demons, the propaganda said. They are barbaric, without honor, without culture, without the Bushido code that makes a warrior civilized. They rape captured women, torture prisoners for sport, parade enemies through streets as trophies. Better to die than be captured. Better to die with honor than live with shame. So they wait for death. Some pray. Some simply stare at the ground, their faces blank with exhaustion and resignation. Some whisper to each other, sharing fears, sharing final words, sharing the weight of knowing that tomorrow might not come. Among them stands a young woman of 23. Her name is Reiko. She stands with her arms wrapped around herself despite the suffocating heat, trying to make herself small, trying to become invisible. It is a futile gesture. There is nowhere to hide. Among them stands Reiko, 23, but daughter of Professor Tanaka. Her father taught Western civilization at the Imperial University, studying the enemy to defeat them. She can still hear his voice. Our civilization is 2,000 years old. Theirs is barely 200. They worship cars and refrigerators. They know nothing of honor, of sacrifice, of spiritual strength. She believed every word. Why wouldn't she? He was a scholar, a man of wisdom. But she had a secret. She could read English fluently. Hemingway, Steinbeck, Fitzgerald Faulkner books from her father's library, she read at night like a thief. The Americans in these stories weren't hollow. They struggled with honor and duty. They sacrificed for each other. They loved and grieved just like anyone else. Her father said literature was propaganda, so she said nothing. She kept her confusion to herself. Now, standing in the heat, waiting to learn her fate, Reiko clutches a small journal. Inside are her observations, her attempts to make sense of a war that never made sense. The last entry, written yesterday: "Father taught me Americans lack Bushido, the warrior code of mercy. I think we will not see tomorrow's sunrise." American trucks appear on the road, raising clouds of dust. The women stiffen. Some begin to pray aloud. Others reach for each other's hands. This is it. This is where the cruelty begins. The trucks stop. American soldiers emerge. They are young. Most look barely 20. They look tired. They look like they want to go home. But they do not look cruel. They do not look like demons. A sergeant steps forward. He is older than the others, perhaps 35, with a sunburned face and lines around his eyes that suggest he has spent too many days squinting into the sun. "Line up," he calls. His voice is neither kind nor cruel. It is simply the voice of a man doing his job. "Single file. Let's go, ladies. We ain't got all day." The women look at each other. This is not the violence they expected. This is not the degradation they were promised. This is just bureaucracy, boredom, routine. They form a line. The sergeant walks down the row checking names against a clipboard. He doesn't spit on them. He doesn't strike them. He barely looks at them. He is just counting, making marks on paper, ensuring the numbers match. "Truck 1, he calls. "First 20 move." The women climb into the back of the first truck, helping each other up. The canvas cover blocks most of the sunlight, leaving them in hot, dim shadow. They press together, bodies against bodies, still waiting for the first blow, the first violation, the first proof that everything they were told was true. The engine starts. The truck begins to move, and still nothing happens. No violence, no cruelty, just the rumble of the engine and the bounce of the road and the sound of their own breathing. Reiko sits with her journal clutched against her chest. In her mind, she is already writing the next entry, though her hands are shaking too much to actually put pen to paper. They came for us, American soldiers. But there was no brutality, just orders, just efficiency. They handled us like cargo, not precious cargo, but not garbage either. What does this mean? What should I feel? Fear, relief, I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. Beside her sits another woman. She is older, perhaps 28, with hands that bear the kind of scars that come from working without proper tools. Her name is Akemi. She was a nurse. Akemi stares at her hands, turning them over, examining the white lines that crisscross her palms and fingers. Burn scars from sterilizing instruments over open flames. Cut marks from using broken glass as surgical tools when metal ran out. Calluses from days and nights of work that never ended, never got easier, never felt like enough. She was trained at the Tokyo Imperial Nursing Academy, top 5% of her class. Her instructors praised her steady hands, her quick mind, her ability to stay calm when everyone else panicked. They said she would save many lives. They said she would bring honor to her profession. Instead, she watched men die. So many men, boys really, teenagers with stomach wounds that no amount of gauze could stop from bleeding. Soldiers with shattered limbs she amputated without anesthesia, because there was no anesthesia. Casualties from artillery strikes who were already dead but didn't know it yet, asking her to tell their mothers they died bravely. She held their hands. She lied and said it wouldn't hurt. She watched the light leave their eyes. Her father had been a country doctor. He died treating plague victims when Akemi was 16, refusing to leave his patients even when he knew the disease would kill him too. Before he died, he told her, "Medicine transcends politics, Akemi. A patient is a patient. Their nationality doesn't matter in the examination room. You heal who needs healing. That's all." She became a nurse to honor his memory, to live by his principle. But the war made nationality matter. Officers were treated before enlisted men, Japanese before prisoners, men before women. Always a hierarchy, always a calculation of whose life was worth the medicine, the time, the effort. She learned to make those calculations. She learned to decide who would live and who would die based on rank, on utility, on how much use the army could still extract from a damaged body. She learned to ignore the screaming. Now sitting in the back of an American truck bouncing along a road to an unknown destination, Akemi wonders if American doctors make the same calculations. If they too have learned to rank human worth, to measure lives against resources, to let some die so others might live, or if they have so much abundance that they never have to choose. She doesn't know which possibility frightens her more. Across from her, trying to maintain dignity despite the cramped space and jostling truck, sits a woman of 42. Her name is Sachiko. She was a teacher. 18 years she spent teaching elementary students in Kyoto. She taught them reading and mathematics and calligraphy. She taught them about the emperor's divine nature. She taught them that Japan's destiny was to lead Asia into a new age of prosperity. She taught them that Americans were culturally inferior, obsessed with materialism, lacking the spiritual depth that made Japanese civilization superior. She filled young minds with certainties, with pride, with loyalty that she knew would send them to war when they were old enough. Now those certainties feel like lies. Lies that killed the boys she taught. Lies that devastated the country she loved. Lies that led to this moment sitting in an enemy truck waiting to pay for sins she didn't know she was committing. Her husband died at Midway in 1942. They had no children, which had been Sachiko's deepest regret. Now she wonders if it was a blessing. Better to have no children than to fill them with poison disguised as wisdom. She maintains her posture even in the crowded truck. Back straight, chin up. Whatever comes, she will face it with the dignity her students deserve to see in their teacher. Even if that dignity is all she has left. Near the back of the truck, almost invisible among the others, sits the youngest woman in the group. Mieko, 19 years old, Korean, taken from her village when she was 17. Her family was told she would work in a factory. They were promised good wages, safe conditions, honorable work that would help the greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere. They believed the promises because what choice did they have? Korea was occupied. You did what you were told, or your entire family suffered. Mieko was not sent to a factory. She was sent to a comfort station, a place where soldiers came to use women's bodies, where girls became things rather than people, where humanity was something that happened to other people in other places. She learned to disappear inside herself, to make her mind go somewhere else while her body remained, to become so small and quiet that perhaps they would forget she existed. The other women know what she was. They don't speak of it. They don't look at her. The shame is too large, too terrible. It infects everyone who comes near it. Mieko has not spoken more than 10 words since they were gathered for transport. She does not expect to speak again. What would she say? Who would want to hear it? But she watches. She listens. She notices things the others miss because they still think of themselves as people who matter, as people with dignity to protect. Mieko knows better. She lost that illusion long ago. But watching and listening, she has learned something the others haven't yet grasped. The Americans don't seem to know what she was, don't seem to care. They counted her like they counted the others, put her on the truck like they put the others, gave her the same orders in the same tone of voice. It is the first time in 2 years anyone has treated her like she is human. She doesn't trust it, but she notices it. The trucks drive for hours, through burned villages and abandoned military positions, past palm trees blown to splinters, past craters where bombs fell, past the wreckage of a war that consumed everything it touched. At a port, they are transferred to ships, massive vessels of gray steel larger than anything most of these women have ever seen. The hulls rise like cliffs above the water. American sailors watch the women board, their expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt to something that might be pity. The women keep their eyes down, moving in silent lines, their bare feet slapping against hot wood, into the belly of the ship where the air is thick with the smell of metal and oil and bodies. They are given thin mattresses, told to wait. As the ship's engines rumble to life and the vessel begins to move, the women huddle together. Some whisper prayers to ancestors, to Buddha, to gods who may or may not be listening. Some cry quietly. A few, like Akemi, simply breathe, staying present, refusing to let their minds spiral into the dark places that wait. The voyage will take 3 weeks. 3 weeks of fear, of rumors, of whispered theories about what the Americans will do to them when they arrive. They will drown us at sea, one woman whispers, where no one can see. They will make us disappear. No, another replies. They will take us to America, put us in cages, display us like animals in their zoos. Akemi says nothing. She has seen too much death to speculate about her own. Whatever comes will come. She will face it. What choice does she have? But late at night, lying on her thin mattress in the darkness, she thinks about her father's words. A patient is a patient. Would American doctors believe that, or had her father been naive, a gentleman in a brutal world clinging to ideals that the war proved meaningless? She doesn't know, but in 4 months she will find out. In a medical ward in Alabama, she will learn the answer to a question she didn't even know she was asking, and the answer will change everything. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. If you or your father served in World War II and encountered prisoners of war, whether Japanese, German, or Italian, please share your story in the comments below. These histories are fading with each passing year, and they deserve to be preserved. Your experiences matter. Your memories matter. What you are about to hear is true. The details have been carefully researched. The women existed. Fort McClellan existed. What happened there happened. And it matters because it shows us something we need to remember about who we are, about what we stand for, about what happens when principle meets practice, when values are tested by reality, when the enemy turns out to be human after all. Now let's continue their journey. Because what these 47 women are about to discover will challenge everything they know about America, about war, about the thin line between civilization and barbarism. And the most shocking part, the Americans don't even realize they're doing anything unusual. They're just following regulations, just doing their jobs, just treating prisoners according to the Geneva Convention. But for women who were taught that mercy is weakness and kindness is manipulation, following the rules will be the most revolutionary act they've ever witnessed. 3 weeks at sea. The women are fed twice daily. Rice, canned vegetables, sometimes bread. Simple food, but more than many of them have seen in months. At first, some refuse to eat. They are convinced it is poisoned. A trick. A way to make their deaths slower, more painful. But hunger wins. It always does. They eat slowly, cautiously, waiting for symptoms that never come. Waiting for the trap to spring. It doesn't. They gain a little weight. Color returns to some faces. They begin to look less like ghosts, more like people. This confuses them almost as much as it comforts them. Why would the enemy feed them? What purpose does it serve? Are they being fattened for some purpose they cannot yet imagine? The women write in journals trying to make sense of guards who seem bored rather than cruel. Men who want to finish shifts and go home, who see prisoners as paperwork rather than enemies to hate. It is almost worse than cruelty would be. At least cruelty would make sense. On day 14, they're allowed on deck. Reiko stands at the rail thinking of her father, who died believing they would win. What if he was wrong about everything? She turns from the rail, unable to follow that thought. The voyage continues, and finally through morning fog, a coastline appears. California, America, the enemy's homeland. The place that was supposed to be as devastated as Japan, as ruined as desperate. Instead, through the gaps in the fog, they see buildings. Intact buildings, rows of them, streets with cars moving along them. Everything whole, everything functioning, everything alive. The contrast with their memories of Japan's burned cities is so extreme it feels like hallucination, like their minds are showing them what they want to see rather than what is really there. But as the ship draws closer and the fog lifts, the truth becomes undeniable. This country has not been touched by war, not bombed, not burned, not devastated. It sits fat and whole and utterly impossibly intact. How can this be real? One woman whispers, her voice breaking. How can any country be this big, this whole? No one answers. There is no answer. They were told American cities would be destroyed, that the economy would collapse, that the people would be starving, that victory was certain because America was weak, overextended, unable to sustain a long war. Every word was a lie. The ship docks at San Francisco. They are processed through immigration. Long tables. American officials with stamps and papers. Questions asked through translators. The women answer in monosyllables, their voices barely audible. They are shuffled through the system like parts on an assembly line. Efficient, impersonal, boring. Still no cruelty, still no violence, just bureaucracy. Forms, stamps. Next, from San Francisco, they are loaded onto trains, clean trains with cushioned seats and windows that open. The women sit stiffly, afraid to touch anything, convinced that this comfort is a trap and it will be taken away, that the real punishment is waiting around the next corner. But the train simply travels east, for days, through landscapes these women have never imagined. For days they travel through landscapes they've never imagined. Mountains that dwarf anything in Japan. Deserts stretching to horizons. Plains so vast they make you feel small. Towns and cities all intact, all functioning, showing no sign a war is happening. Reiko presses her face to the window. Farms with fat cattle, children playing, cars everywhere, abundance everywhere. It breaks something fundamental in her. She thought war was universal, that everyone was suffering equally. But the enemy is eating ice cream and going to movies, living lives untouched by anything across the ocean. The women watch in silence, understanding they lost before it started. Not because of strategy or courage, but because they fought an enemy so rich that feeding prisoners was just another checklist item. That kind of power is more terrifying than cruelty. Finally, the train stops at a small station in Alabama. The heat hits them when they step onto the platform. Different from Pacific heat, drier, sharper. It cuts through the thin dresses they have been given, makes them squint against light that seems somehow brighter here than anywhere else. Buses wait, a short ride through countryside, and then rising from flat land, Fort McClellan appears. Guard towers, barracks, fences, orderly rows of buildings, American soldiers moving about their duties. It looks like a military installation anywhere in the world. Functional, austere, purpose-built, but there are no cages, no crowds of jeering civilians, no signs promising torture or degradation. Just buildings, just fences, just soldiers doing jobs. The buses stop at an administrative building. The women are lined up, told to wait. An American officer emerges, flanked by a translator. He looks tired. He looks like he has done this many times before. He looks like he wants it to be over so he can go have dinner. Through the translator, he says, "You will be processed, given quarters, uniforms, and assignments. You will work while you are here. You will be treated according to the Geneva Convention. Do you understand?" The women nod. They understand the words work and treated. Everything else is noise, legal terms, foreign concepts, things that might mean something if they survive long enough to learn what they mean. The officer nods, satisfied. He disappears back into the building. Guards direct the women toward another structure. And so it begins. The processing, the journey into a captivity that will turn out to be nothing like what they expected, into a reality that will shatter their worldview more completely than any bomb ever could. They expect cruelty. They will receive regulations. They expect hatred. They will receive indifference. They expect to be treated as less than human. They will be treated as paperwork that must be filed correctly. And that difference, that vast gulf between expectation and reality, will be the beginning of the end of everything they thought they knew. Before we continue, understand this. In 1929, 47 nations created the Geneva Convention, rules for treating prisoners of war. Food, shelter, medical care. No torture. Basic human dignity regardless of what the enemy had done. The United States ratified it. Japan did not. American prisoners in Japanese camps faced the Bataan Death March, the Burma Railway starvation in prison holes. The Japanese military saw the Geneva Convention as weakness proof the West had gone soft. But Eisenhower's directive was clear. We treat prisoners according to international law, not because of who they are, but because of who we are. For these 47 women, this policy would crack open their worldview. They expected revenge. They would receive regulation. They expected brutality. They would receive bureaucracy. And that difference would destroy everything they'd been taught. Now let us return to Alabama, to the heat and the fences, and the moment when these women first began to understand that nothing would be as they expected. The first stop is a medical building, long and low, painted white, almost glowing in the Alabama sun. The doors propped open, and through it the women can see nurses moving inside their uniforms, crisp and white, their movements efficient and purposeful. The sight makes Akemi's heart clench. She was a nurse once, in another life, before the war taught her that healing was just a way to send men back to die more slowly. The women are lined up outside the building, told to wait. They stand in the heat sweat, already soaking through the thin dresses they were given on the train. Some of them sway slightly dizzy from exhaustion, from fear, from the strangeness of being here at all. One by one they are called inside. When Reiko's name is called, she walks into the building on legs that feel disconnected from her body. Her hands are shaking. She clasps them together to hide the trembling, but it doesn't help. The fear is too large to be hidden. The examination room is clean, almost sterile. Medical equipment lines the walls. Instruments made of gleaming metal and glass. Everything organized, labeled, placed with precision. A metal examination table sits in the center of the room, covered with a fresh paper sheet. Bright lights hanging from the ceiling, ready to illuminate every detail, every flaw, every weakness. An American doctor waits. He is older, perhaps 60, with gray hair and glasses. His name tag says Richardson. Two nurses flank him, young women with kind faces and professional demeanors. A translator stands off to the side, a young corporal who looks like he would rather be anywhere else. The doctor gestures to the examination table. Through the translator, he says, "Please sit. I need to check your vital signs. Make sure you are healthy." Reiko sits on the edge of the table. The paper crinkles beneath her. She keeps her arms wrapped around herself, a futile shield against whatever is coming. Her eyes are fixed on the floor. She cannot look at him, cannot watch whatever he is about to do. The doctor approaches. His footsteps are soft on the linoleum. He reaches out and Reiko flinches, her whole body going rigid, bracing for pain. But his touch when it comes is gentle, professional. He places 2 fingers on her wrist, feeling for her pulse. His fingers are warm but not invasive. He counts silently, his eyes focused on his watch. 30 seconds. He releases her wrist. He listens to her breathing with a stethoscope. The cold metal against her back makes her gasp, but he is quick, efficient. Front and back. Deep breath. Another. Good. He looks at her eyes, shining a small light to check the pupils. Looks at her throat, asking her to open wide and say, "Ah." Checks her lymph nodes. His finger is pressing gently along her neck and under her jaw. Throughout the examination, his manner is calm, detached, neither cruel nor especially kind. He is simply a doctor performing a medical examination, doing his job, following a checklist. When he is finished, he makes notes on a clipboard. Then he speaks to the translator, who turns to Reiko. "The doctor says you are malnourished and dehydrated. You will be given vitamin supplements and placed on a special diet to help you gain weight. Do you have any pain? Any injuries that need treatment?" Reiko shakes her head. She still cannot speak. Her throat has closed with confusion, with the overwhelming strangeness of being touched by an enemy doctor with hands that did not hurt her. The doctor nods. He gestures that she may go. Reiko slides off the table. Her legs nearly buckle. She has to grip the edge of the table for a moment to steady herself. Then she walks out of the room, moving like someone in a dream, not quite convinced any of this is real. Outside, the other women crowd around her, their faces tight with anxiety. "What did they do?" someone whispers urgently. "Did they hurt you?" Reiko struggles to find words. Her mind is trying to process what just happened, trying to fit it into the framework of what she was told to expect and failing completely. "They checked me," she finally manages. Her voice sounds distant, hollow. "Like a doctor, just like a doctor." The women look at each other. Confusion ripples through them like wind through grass. This makes no sense. None of it makes sense. But one by one they are called inside. One by one they receive the same examination. Gentle, professional, thorough. And one by one they emerge looking dazed, looking like people whose understanding of the world has just been tilted slightly off axis. Akimi's turn comes. When the doctor checks her hands, running his fingers over the scars, she expects him to ask what happened, to demand an explanation, to judge her for the failures those scars represent. Instead, he simply makes a note. Burns and lacerations mostly healed. Some nerve damage possible in the left hand. Will monitor. That is all. No questions, no judgment, just clinical observation. When she emerges, she finds Reiko waiting. Their eyes meet. Neither speaks, but something passes between them. An acknowledgement, a shared confusion, a crack forming in the foundation of everything they thought they knew. After the medical examinations, they are directed to another building. This one has a sign in English that none of them can read. Inside, they find rows of shower stalls and benches. The air is warm and humid, filled with the smell of soap. Steam rises from somewhere deeper in the building. The sound of running water echoes off tile walls. An American nurse stands near the entrance. She is perhaps 40 with graying hair and a kind face. She tries to explain through gestures what will happen. They will shower. They will be given soap and shampoo. Their old clothes will be taken and destroyed. They will be given new clothes. The women stand frozen. This is the moment they have been dreading. This is where the humiliation begins. They will be forced to strip naked before their enemies, to stand vulnerable and exposed, to be photographed, mocked, degraded. This is where they will learn what it means to be prisoners. This is where they will discover that all the professional courtesy until now was just prelude to the real cruelty. But the nurse simply points to the showers, points to stacks of towels and bars of soap, points to the hooks where they can hang their clothes. Then she turns and walks out. The door closes behind her with a soft click. They are alone. They stand waiting for the trap to spring, for camera's degradation. Nothing happens. Slowly they undress, huddled together. Still nothing. Just steam and silence. But the door remains closed. The room remains empty except for them. Nothing happens. Akemi takes a step forward. Then another. She reaches out and turns the handle of one of the showers. Water pours out, hitting the tile floor with a sound like rain. She holds her hand under the stream, expecting it to be cold, expecting one more small cruelty. Lukewarm water or icy water, or barely a trickle. But the water is hot. Not just warm, hot. Steam rises from it in clouds. Akemi's eyes widen. She looks back at the others, and for a moment none of them can quite believe it. Running hot water. In a prison camp. For enemy prisoners. She steps under the stream. The hot water hits her shoulders and she gapes. Her whole body goes rigid, then slowly relaxes. For the first time in over a year, she feels hot water on her skin. Not a quick rinse from a bucket, not a cold stream washing away the worst of the dirt, but actual hot water pouring over her, washing away months of grime and fear and exhaustion. She picks up the bar of soap from the shelf mounted on the wall. It is white, unmarked, and it smells clean. Like nothing. Like everything. She turns it over in her scarred hands, hardly believing it is real. One by one, the other women approach the showers. They choose stalls, turn on the water, step into the hot streams. Some close their eyes and just stand there, feeling the water pour over their heads, their shoulders, their backs. Others scrub frantically, as if trying to wash away more than just dirt, trying to scrub away the last 2 years. The war, the fear, the certainty that they were going to die. Some begin to cry. The water mixes with their tears, washing them away as fast as they fall. Others laugh. Strange high-pitched sounds that echo off the tile walls, sounds that are not quite sane, but not quite broken either. Sounds of tension releasing, of something fundamental shifting inside. Reiko stands under the water and scrubs her skin until it is red. She works the soap through her hair, feeling months of accumulated dirt and oil dissolve and wash away. The water at her feet runs gray, then brown, then gradually clearer. She watches it spiral down the drain, taking with it not just dirt, but something else. Some layer of protection, some armor she had built around herself. When she finally turns off the water and stands dripping on the tile floor, she feels lighter, as if something heavy had been washed away along with the filth, as if she could float away if she were not careful. They dry themselves with clean towels, still waiting for cruelty that never comes. Only soap steam the unfamiliar feeling of being clean. Reiko wraps a towel around herself and sits on one of the benches. Her legs are shaking. She feels dizzy, not from hunger or exhaustion, but from confusion. From the overwhelming strangeness of being treated like a human being. From the cognitive dissonance of receiving basic dignity from people she was taught to see as monsters. In her mind, she composes another journal entry, though her journal is back in her bundle of possessions and she has no pen. They gave us hot water, soap, towels. They left us alone with our dignity. Father said Americans would strip us, mock us, photograph our shame for propaganda. But no one watched. No one laughed. No one came in at all. What kind of enemy does this? What kind of people give hot showers to prisoners? This is not weakness. This is something else. Something I do not have a name for. Something that frightens me more than cruelty would have. Because cruelty I could understand. This This I cannot. The door opens. The same nurse from before enters. She gestures to a pile of folded clothing on a table near the entrance. Simple cotton dresses. Plain, clean. She indicates that they should dress, then leaves again. The women put on the dresses. They are not beautiful. They are not flattering. They are just clothes. Clean clothes that smell like laundry soap and sunshine. Clothes without holes or patches or stains that will not wash out no matter how hard you scrub. They are just clothes, but they feel like a gift, like something undeserved, like a kindness that makes no sense. When they are dressed, they are directed to the mess hall. The mess hall is a large building with long tables and benches. The smell hits them as soon as they enter. Cooking food, actual cooking food, meat and vegetables and bread. The smell is so powerful, so overwhelming, that several women stop in the doorway unable to move forward. American soldiers are eating at some of the tables. They glance up at the Japanese women, their expressions ranging from curiosity to indifference. But no one jeers, no one spits, no one makes threatening gestures. They just look for a moment, then return to their meals, their conversations, their normal routines. The women are directed to a separate section of the hall. Trays have been set out for them, and on each tray is more food than most of them have seen in months. White rice, soft, fluffy, perfect. Steamed vegetables with color and texture. Chicken tender and seasoned. Fresh roll with butter. Pudding. A tall glass of milk. More food than they've seen in months. The women stand staring at the trays. This must be a mistake. This must be meant for someone else, for the soldiers, for the officers, not for them, not for prisoners, not for enemies. An American soldier walks past, sees them standing frozen. He stops, looks at them, looks at the trays. Sit, he says, gesturing to the benches. Eat. His tone is not unkind, not warm but not cruel either, just matter of fact, slightly impatient, like someone who has more important things to do than stand around watching confused prisoners. Slowly the women sit. They pick up their forks. The utensils are made of actual metal, not wood or bamboo. Real forks with 4 tines. Real knives, though not sharp enough to be weapons. Real spoons. Reiko looks across the table at Akemi. Akemi looks back. A silent question passes between them. Is this real? Is this safe? Should we eat? Akemi nods slightly. They have to eat. Whether it is poisoned or not, whether it is a trick or not, they have to eat because their bodies are failing and they cannot think clearly when they are this hungry. Reiko takes a small bite of rice. The texture is perfect. Soft but not mushy. It tastes like rice used to taste before the war, when rice was something you ate every day without thinking about it, without savoring every grain, like it might be your last. She takes a bite of chicken. The meat is tender, the herbs savory and complex. It tastes like food prepared with care, with skill, with the assumption that the people eating it deserve something that tastes good. Around her, the other women are eating, some with tears streaming down their faces. Others, mechanically, their expressions blank, their minds shut down by the impossibility of this moment. A few cannot eat at all, their throats, closing their bodies, rejecting food because accepting it feels like betrayal. Akemi eats slowly, methodically. Her medical training takes over. Her body needs this food, the nutrients, the calories, the protein. She will eat even if her mind cannot process what it means. She will survive even if survival makes no sense. Questions pile up. Why this abundance? Unless America is so rich that feeding prisoners costs nothing. That thought is more terrifying than cruelty. It means the war was over before it started. Reiko finishes her chicken. She looks at the pudding, hesitates, then takes a spoonful. It is sweet and rich and smooth. It tastes like dessert, like something you eat because you want to, not because you have to, like a luxury. She sets down her spoon. She cannot eat anymore. Not because she is full, but because the guilt is too large. Because somewhere in Japan, her mother is starving. Her neighbors are starving. Children are starving. And she sits here in an enemy prison eating dessert. How can she live with that? How can any of them live with that? Around her, women are having the same realization, the same breaking point. Some push their trays away. Others finish everything driven by hunger that overrides guilt. But their faces show the cost of every bite. They are learning the first terrible lesson of their captivity. that America's greatest weapon is not violence. It is this: the food, the medicine, the casual assumption that even prisoners deserve basic dignity. By treating them humanely, America is proving the bankruptcy of everything they were taught. Every meal is an indictment. Every clean bed is evidence of their own government's failures. Every moment of decent treatment undermines the entire ideological structure they built their lives around. They expect torture. They receive regulations. And somehow that is infinitely more devastating. After the meal, they are taken to their barracks. The building is simple but clean. Rows of beds line the walls, military precision in their arrangement. Each bed has a mattress, sheets of pillow, and a thin blanket. At the foot of each bed sits a small footlocker. The floor is swept. The windows let in light. There is nothing extra, nothing decorative, but everything that is there is whole and functional. An American officer stands at the front of the barracks. He waits for the women to gather, then speaks through the translator. His voice is neither kind nor cruel. It is simply the voice of a man explaining rules, the voice of bureaucracy, the voice of systems that continue regardless of individual feelings. You will rise at 6 in the morning, breakfast at 7. You will be given work assignments, lunch at noon, dinner at 6 in the evening, lights out at 10. You are not to leave your designated areas without permission. You will obey all orders from American personnel. Any questions? No one speaks. They barely understand what is being said. The words wash over them like water, familiar sounds without clear meaning. They catch fragments: work, food, orders. The rest is just noise. The officer nods, satisfied that his duty is done. He leaves. The women are alone in the barracks, surrounded by clean beds and the smell of fresh laundry. Reiko finds her assigned bed. The number matches a tag they gave her earlier. She sits on the edge, testing the mattress. It gives slightly under her weight. It is thin, but clean, softer than anything she has slept on in over a year, softer than the floor of the ship, the ground of the field hospital, the bare boards of the Manila barracks. She touches the sheets. White cotton, slightly rough but whole. No tears, no patches, no stains that will not wash out. Just clean white sheets that smell like soap. She lies down, not bothering to undress or get under the covers. Just lies on top of the bed, staring at the ceiling. The other women are doing the same. Some sit on their beds. Some lie down. Some stand at the windows, looking out at the camp, at the fences, at the American soldiers walking past without giving them a second glance. The sun sets. The light fades. No one turns on the lights. They sit in gathering darkness, each alone with thoughts too heavy to share. Reiko thinks about her father. Wonders what he would say if he could see her now. Lying on a clean American bed, belly full of American food, skin clean from an American shower. Would he be ashamed? Would he understand? Would he believe her if she told him the Americans were not monsters? She will never know. He is dead, buried in ash and rubble, and the certainty that Japan would win. That certainty killed him as surely as the bombs did. She takes out her journal, uses the last of the daylight to write. September 18th, 1945, they gave us food, hot water, clean beds. I do not understand. We were told they would torture us, rape us, kill us. Instead, they treat us like... I cannot finish this sentence. I do not know what to call this. It is not kindness. They are not our friends. But it is not cruelty either. It is something in between, something I have no word for. Father taught me Americans are barbaric, materialistic, without honor. But today they showed us more consideration than our own military ever did. What is happening here? What does this mean? I am afraid. Not of them, but of these questions. Outside, crickets begin their evening song. Inside, the sound of quiet weeping gradually fades into exhausted silence. They have survived the first day. But survival is becoming more confusing than death might have been. The days begin to follow a pattern. The wake-up bell rings at 6 sharp. The women rise from their beds, make them according to military standards they learned in their previous lives, and file to the washrooms. There are sinks with running water, toilets that flush, mirrors on the walls that show them their own faces, thinner than they remember, older than they should be, but still their own. Breakfast is served at 7, oatmeal, toast, sometimes eggs, always fruit, always milk. The portions are generous. The food is hot. It is more than they can eat, and the waste bothers them almost as much as the abundance does. After breakfast, work assignments begin. Work assignments begin. Some women go to kitchens where American cooks supervise meal prep, the quantity of food staggering. Others to laundry where machines do most work. Reiko files papers in administrative offices where American clerks mostly ignore her. It's oddly peaceful, no one expects her to speak. Akemi is assigned to the hospital. On her first day, an American nurse shows her real bed's clean sheets, locked cabinets full of actual medicine, penicillin, morphine, sulfa drugs, stainless steel instruments properly sterilized. This is what a hospital should be. What she trained for. Not the improvisation and desperation of field medicine, but systematic care. She assists with basic tasks, changing bandages, taking vitals, distributing medications. The American staff treat her with professional courtesy, correcting mistakes gently as teachers correct students. It's almost like being a real nurse again, almost like having value. The feeling terrifies her as much as it comforts her. At noon, they return to the mess hall. More food, always more food than they can eat. Sandwiches thick with meat and cheese. Soup that is not just hot water and wilted vegetables. Fruit that is fresh and ripe. Cookies. Actual cookies for lunch, as if sugar were infinite, as if dessert were a right rather than a luxury. Some of the women begin to gain weight. Color returns to their cheeks. They start to look less like ghosts, more like the people they used to be. Their hair, which had been dull and brittle, starts to regain some shine. Their skin, which had been gray with malnutrition, begins to take on a healthier tone. They are healing. Their bodies are healing, and somehow that feels like a betrayal. Afternoons mean more work than a period of free time before dinner. During these hours, the women gather in small groups in their barracks or outside in the yard. The yard is a fenced area where they are allowed to walk and talk. Guards watch from towers, but they do not interfere unless someone approaches the fence. It is in these quiet moments that the real processing begins. The real questions start to surface. The real cracks in their certainty begin to spread. 3 weeks pass. October arrives bringing cooler weather. The Alabama heat breaks slightly. The mornings and evenings become almost comfortable. The women are given warmer clothing. Not much, just a light jacket for each of them, but it is enough. Then the letters start arriving. They are told one morning that mail has come from Japan. Letters that have been processed through military censors, examined for any information that might be useful, then passed along to the prisoners. The women crowd around the officer distributing envelopes, their faces desperate with hope and fear in equal measure. Not everyone receives a letter. Mail service from Japan is chaotic. Many addresses no longer exist. Many families have been scattered, displaced, lost in the ruins. But some letters get through, and the women who receive them retreat to private corners to read words from home. Sachiko receives a letter from her sister. She sits on her bed, hands shaking as she opens the envelope. The paper inside is thin, nearly transparent. The handwriting is cramped, as if her sister were trying to fit as many words as possible onto the precious paper. Kyoto survived the bombing, but we have nothing. The letter begins. Rice ration is 3 cups per person per week. No vegetables, no meat, no medicine. The Watanabes next door died last month. Pneumonia. It could have been cured with penicillin, but there is no penicillin. I am glad you are alive, but I cannot imagine where you are or what has happened to you. Please come home if you can. We need you. Sachiko reads the letter aloud to the small group gathered around her. Her voice shakes. When she finishes, silence fills the space between them. Then someone asks the question they are all thinking. How can we be here eating 3 meals a day, sleeping in clean beds while they starve? No one answers. There is no answer. Or rather, the answer is too terrible to speak aloud. They are here comfortable and fed because they lost, because they are prisoners, because the enemy has so much that feeding them takes nothing away from their own people. The contrast is obscene, unbearable, a weight that grows heavier with each passing day. 1 week later, Reiko receives a letter from her mother. She is in the administrative office when it is handed to her. An American clerk passes it across the desk without ceremony, without understanding what it contains, what it will do to her. Reiko takes it to the bathroom. locks herself in a stall, opens the envelope with trembling hands. Her mother's handwriting is worse than she remembers, shaky, uncertain, as if the hand holding the pen had forgotten how to form characters properly. Your father died in an air raid last March. The letter begins. No preamble, no gentle preparation, just the facts stark and terrible. I did not want to tell you, but you should know. He spent his last days in a bomb shelter talking about honor and sacrifice. I think he died still believing we would win. Reiko stops breathing, has to force air into her lungs, has to command her body to continue functioning. The letter continues. The university is gone, burned, all his books, his research, his life's work. Ash. I eat grass now, boil tree bark for soup. I am ashamed to tell you this, but I stole a potato from the neighbor's garden last week. She caught me. She understood. We are all stealing to survive. Where are you, Reiko? Are you alive? If you can come home, please come. If you cannot, I understand. Survive however you can. That is all that matters now. Your father's last words were about you. He said Reiko will come home and tell me about the barbarians. She will confirm everything I taught her. He was so certain. I do not have the heart to tell him he was wrong, but I think he was wrong about many things. The paper falls from Reiko's hands. She bends forward, arms wrapped around her stomach, and vomits into the toilet. Chicken and vegetables and bread. All the food she ate for lunch comes back up bitter and accusing. She vomits until there is nothing left, until she is just dry, heaving her body convulsing with the effort of expelling something that cannot be expelled. Not food, guilt, shame. The knowledge that her father died believing lies while she ate American pudding. When the American clerk finds her 20 minutes later, Reiko is sitting on the bathroom floor, her face pale, her eyes hollow. You okay? The clerk asks, genuine concern in her voice. Not pity, not contempt, just basic human concern for another person who is clearly not okay. Reiko nods, lies, gets to her feet on shaking legs. You sure you look like you've seen a ghost? Reiko nods again, forces herself to walk out of the bathroom back to her desk, back to the filing and sorting, and pretending that anything in the world makes sense anymore. That night, the barracks fills with weeping. Every letter told the same truth: Japan destroyed families starving. Some women refuse to eat the next day, but hunger wins. They cannot even maintain their suffering. Failures at failing. The conversations in the barracks change after the letters arrive. The women begin to speak more openly about their confusion. Not loudly, not in large groups, but in small clusters, in whispered tones, they begin to voice questions that would have been unthinkable a month ago. Do you think our government lied to us? Someone asks one night. Silence. Then carefully, not lied. Maybe they did not know, maybe they believed it themselves. Or maybe, a third voice says even more quietly, they knew exactly what they were doing. Maybe the lies were necessary to keep us fighting. These conversations are dangerous, treasonous, the kind of talk that could get you executed in Japan. But here, thousands of miles from home, surrounded by enemies who treat them better than their own people did, the women find they cannot keep silent anymore. Not everyone participates. Some women cling fiercely to old beliefs. They insist that American kindness is manipulation. That punishment will come eventually. That loyalty to the emperor is still paramount, still meaningful, still worth something. These women keep to themselves, eat their meals in silence, refuse to engage with the contradictions. They are building walls inside themselves, protecting the last fragments of certainty against the flood of evidence that threatens to wash everything away. But others like Reiko and Akemi and Sachiko find they cannot look away, cannot close their eyes to what they see every day, cannot maintain the fiction that they are being tortured when they are being fed, cannot pretend they are suffering when they are healing. The cognitive dissonance is painful, but it is also clarifying. Each day forces them to choose. Believe their own eyes or cling to propaganda that makes less sense with every passing hour. It has been 2 months now. November. The weather continues to cool. The women are given heavier jackets, gloves. They are told about something called Thanksgiving coming soon. The Americans seem excited about it. There is talk of turkey and stuffing and pie. The women do not understand what any of it means, only that it involves even more food than usual. One afternoon, they learn about the canteen. It is a small store on the base where they can purchase items with camp scrip. The scrip are tokens they earn for their work. Not much, just a small allowance each week, but enough to buy small luxuries. When they first enter the canteen, the women stop in the doorway. Stunned, disbelieving, the shelves are full, not abundant, not overflowing, but full. Row after row of items that in Japan would be unimaginable luxuries. Chocolate bars, dozens of them. Different brands, different sizes, all wrapped in colorful paper. Cigarettes, writing paper and pencils, toothpaste and soap, small bottles of perfume, magazines with glossy covers showing smiling women and happy families, candies, needles and thread, hair ribbons, lipstick. Things so frivolous, so unnecessary, so utterly beyond the realm of possibility that seeing them here feels like hallucination. Reiko stands before the shelf of chocolate bars. Her hand hovers over them but does not touch. In Japan, chocolate became a distant memory years ago, a luxury from before the war, from a time when the world was different. Here are rows of it, dozens of bars, available for purchase with tokens earned by sorting American mail. She takes one bar, just one. She does not deserve more, does not deserve any, really, but she takes one anyway because some part of her, some small, selfish part, still wants to taste chocolate again. That night, she unwraps it slowly. The sweetness explodes in her mouth. Childhood, the world before war, forgotten happiness. Tears run down her face. Somewhere in Japan, children are dying of starvation. Both things true, both real. She doesn't know how to hold them both without breaking. Other women make similar discoveries. Small luxuries purchased with tokens. Each one shadowed by guilt, by knowledge of suffering, back home. Private James McKenna writes in his guard tower diary, November 8, 1945, 3 months since the Japanese women arrived. They're eating better, some even smile occasionally, though they hide it like smiling is shameful. I don't understand these people. We feed them, clothe them, give them work, and they act like we're doing something terrible to them, like kindness is worse than cruelty. Maybe that's what propaganda does, makes you unable to accept reality when it contradicts what you were taught. My buddy Tom was in Bataan, came back weighing 90 pounds, missing 3 toes. These women aren't the ones who did that to Tom, but they're Japanese, so I guess they're supposed to pay for it somehow, except we're not making them pay. We're feeding them chicken. War is strange, makes you question everything about right and wrong, justice and mercy, what we owe to enemies who never showed mercy themselves. I don't have answers, just 6 more hours watching women who are afraid of kindness. The days shorten, the nights grow colder. December arrives. The women have been here almost 4 months. They have fallen into routines, work, meals, sleep, small moments of conversation in the yard or the barracks, letters from home that arrive sporadically, each one bringing news of further devastation, further loss, further proof that the world they knew is gone forever. December passes. The women are changing slowly, painfully. Small cracks in their certainty, small doubts growing. They're beginning to question everything they were taught. Then in early January, one moment will shatter what remains. That moment is coming. The first week of January brings cold rain to Alabama. Not the freezing snow of the north, but a penetrating dampness that seeps into bones and buildings, that makes even the heated barracks feel less warm than they should. The women huddle in their jackets during outdoor time, their breath visible in the air, their hands thrust deep into pockets. Sachiko catches cold on the 3rd day of January. At first it seems like nothing. A cough, a slight fever. She continues working in the kitchen, refusing to admit weakness, refusing to be burdened. She has always been this way. A teacher who came to school even when sick because her students needed her. A woman who maintained dignity even when the world collapsed around her. But this is not just a cold. By the 5th day, the cough has deepened. It rattles in her chest, wet and harsh. Her fever climbs. She becomes confused, disoriented. During the morning meal, she stands to carry her tray back and nearly collapses. Reiko catches her arm. Sachiko-san, you need the hospital. No, I am fine. Just tired. But she is not fine. Her skin is burning. Her eyes are too bright, unfocused. When she tries to walk, her legs will not hold her. Akemi appears at her other side. She does not ask permission. She places her hand on Sachiko's forehead, and her professional assessment is immediate. High fever, respiratory symptoms. She needs to be in the infirmary now. Two guards are summoned. They help carry Sachiko to the medical building. She tries to protest, tries to maintain some dignity, but her body will not cooperate. The fever has her in its grip, and it is not letting go. The infirmary is full. The flu has been sweeping through the camp for 2 weeks. American soldiers fill most of the beds. A few German prisoners occupy others. Every bed is taken, every space claimed. The nurse on duty, a tired woman who has been working double shifts, looks at Sachiko and makes a quick decision. Put her on the mattress in the corner. I will get to Harrison when he makes rounds. They lay Sachiko on a thin mattress on the floor. It is in the corner of the ward out of the way where she will not be stepped on. They cover her with a blanket. They place a pillow under her head, but she is on the floor. On the cold linoleum floor, while the beds above her hold men who cough and sneeze and complain about minor ailments. Word spreads quickly among the Japanese women. By evening, several of them have found reasons to walk past the infirmary, to peer through the windows, to see if what they heard is true. It is true. Sachiko lies on the floor, her breath coming in shallow gasps, her face flushed with fever, her body shaking with chills despite the blanket. Akemi is allowed in because she works in the hospital. She kneels beside Sachiko on the floor, checks her pulse, feels the heat radiating from her skin, listens to the wet rattle of her breathing. Pneumonia, severe pneumonia. The kind that kills if not treated aggressively with antibiotics and oxygen and careful monitoring. She needs penicillin, Akemi tells the nurse. She needs oxygen. She needs to be in a bed where we can monitor her properly. I know, the nurse says, and she sounds genuinely sorry, but there are no beds. When one opens up, she will get it, I promise. But beds do not open up. Not that night, not the next day. Sachiko lies on the floor, her condition worsening hour by hour. The Japanese women take turns sitting with her when they can, holding her hand, whispering words of encouragement that she probably cannot hear, praying to gods who may or may not be listening. By the morning of January 11th, Sachiko has been on the floor for 3 days. She is barely conscious. Her breathing is so labored that each breath sounds like it might be her last. Her fever has climbed so high that she is delirious, speaking in fragments, calling out names of students she taught years ago, asking for her dead husband, begging for water, in a voice like dried leaves. Akemi sits beside her before her shift begins, holding Sachiko's hand, feeling the rapid, thready pulse, knowing that without intervention, Sachiko will not survive another day. I am sorry, Akemi whispers in Japanese, though she does not know if Sachiko can hear. I am sorry that I cannot do more. I am sorry that this is how it ends. But it is not over yet. Because at 8 in the morning, Dr. James Harrison begins his rounds. Dr. Harrison is 56 years old. He has been a doctor for 32 years, a military doctor for 28. He served as a medic in France during the final months of the Great War, too young to be a doctor then, but old enough to carry wounded men off battlefields, to hold their hands while they died, to learn that on a battlefield at 3 in the morning, bleeding men all look the same. He went to medical school after the war on the GI Bill, graduated from Johns Hopkins, joined the Army Medical Corps because it was steady work during the Depression, and because he had learned in France that he was good at staying calm when everyone else panicked. He has treated soldiers in 12 countries, set bones in the Philippines, performed surgeries in England, run field hospitals in North Africa. He has seen every kind of injury, every kind of illness, every way the human body can fail. He has also seen every kind of man, brave men and cowards, liars and heroes, men who faced death with dignity and men who screamed and begged. And he has learned that you cannot tell which is which by looking at them. You can only tell by what they do when the moment comes. He is not a warm man, not unkind but not warm. He does his job with professional competence. He treats patients according to established protocols. He follows regulations because regulations exist for good reasons. He does not make exceptions because exceptions lead to chaos. But he has one principle that overrides everything else. One rule he learned on a French battlefield in 1918 when he was 18 years old and carrying a German soldier to safety because the German soldier was wounded and needed help, and that was all that mattered. A patient is a patient. In the examination room, in the operating theater, in the hospital ward, nationality does not exist. There are only bodies that need healing. There are only people who hurt. And a doctor's job is to heal the hurt, to fix the broken, to save who can be saved. That is all. It is simple. It is the only thing that matters. So when Dr. Harrison enters the ward on the morning of January 11th and sees a woman lying on the floor in the corner, his first thought is not about who she is or where she came from or what her people did to American prisoners. His first thought is medical and immediate. That patient should not be on the floor. He walks across the ward, his footsteps measured and steady. The nurses look up from their duties. The patients in beds turn their heads to watch. Everyone senses that something is about to happen, though they do not yet know what. Dr. Harrison kneels beside Sachiko. His knees crack slightly. He is not as young as he used to be. He places 2 fingers on her wrist, feeling for her pulse. It is rapid, weak, thready. Not good. He places his palm on her forehead. The heat is intense. Very high fever. Also not good. He takes his stethoscope and listens to her breathing. The rails are pronounced wet, crackling in both lungs. Pneumonia. Bilateral. Advanced. He rocks back on his heels, still kneeling, and his face is expressionless. But his mind is working through the diagnosis, the prognosis, the treatment protocol. This patient needs aggressive intervention. Antibiotics, oxygen, IV fluids, monitoring. She needs all of it, and she needs it now. And she needs to be off this floor. He stands. The movement is decisive. When Dr. Harrison makes a decision, he does not second-guess it. He has learned that hesitation kills more patients than wrong decisions do. He raises his voice so the entire ward can hear. I need a bed cleared. Now. The nurses freeze. One of them, a young lieutenant who has worked with Dr. Harrison for 6 months, speaks carefully. Sir, all beds are occupied. The flu cases need to be monitored. I can see that, Lieutenant. Clear one anyway. Sir, regulations state that priority goes to American personnel unless... Dr. Harrison cuts her off, not rudely but firmly. Regulations also state that all patients under my care will receive appropriate treatment. This patient has bilateral pneumonia. She will die if left on the floor. I need a bed. Clear one. The nurse opens her mouth to protest further, then closes it. She has learned that when Dr. Harrison uses that tone, the discussion is over. She turns to scan the ward, looking for the patient who can be moved with least harm. There. Bed 7. Private Morrison. Sprained ankle. Minor injury. He is here for observation more than treatment. He can sit in a chair. Private Morrison, the nurse says, moving to his bed. I need you to move to the chair. Doctor's orders. Morrison looks confused. Then he sees the woman on the floor and understanding dawns. His face flushes. Ma'am, with respect, she's a Jap. She's the enemy. I got hurt serving my country and... Harrison walks to the bedside. He does not raise his voice. He does not need to. Private, you have a sprained ankle. She has pneumonia. In this hospital, medical need determines priority, not nationality, not anything else. You will move to the chair. Is that clear? Morrison's jaw tightens. But Dr. Harrison is a major, and Morrison is a private, and in the Army rank means something. Yes, sir, he says through gritted teeth. He swings his legs off the bed, puts weight gingerly on his injured ankle, and hobbles to a nearby chair. He sits down hard, his face sullen, but he sits. The nurses strip the bed and remake it with fresh sheets. Fast, efficient, practiced. They have done this 1,000 times. Dr. Harrison turns to the Japanese women who have gathered near Sachiko. Several of them are standing in a small cluster, watching, afraid to hope, afraid to believe this might actually happen. He points at Akemi. He has seen her working in the hospital, has noted her competence, her steady hands, her obvious medical training. You, the one who works here, I need help moving her. We need to be careful. Support her head and back. Understand? The translator who has appeared from somewhere conveys this in Japanese. Akemi nods. She moves forward, her hands shaking slightly, and kneels on the other side of Sachiko. Dr. Harrison bends down. He slides one arm under Sachiko's shoulders, the other under her knees. Akemi places her hands to support Sachiko's head and upper back. They adjust their positions, making sure their grip is secure, making sure they will not drop her. On three, Dr. Harrison says, 1, 2, 3, they lift. For a moment, time stops. Dr. Harrison straightens, bearing most of Sachiko's weight. She is too light wasted by fever and illness in months of insufficient food before she ever arrived here. She weighs perhaps 90 pounds. A grown woman reduced to the weight of a child. He adjusts his grip, making sure she is secure, making sure her head is supported, making sure the movement will not hurt her. Then he begins to walk. It is perhaps 20 feet from the corner where Sachiko lay to the bed that has been prepared for her, 20 feet across a medical ward in Alabama, 20 feet that should take perhaps 10 seconds to traverse. But in this moment, those 20 feet span an ocean. They span a war. They span every mile these women traveled from Saipan to San Francisco to this place. They span the lifetime of propaganda these women were taught, every lie they were told, every certainty they built their lives around. The entire ward is silent. Patients in beds have stopped coughing. Nurses have stopped moving. The translator stands frozen. The Japanese women stand in their small cluster, barely breathing. Everyone watches. Dr. Harrison's face is calm, focused, professional. He is simply moving a patient from one location to another. Standard procedure, nothing unusual. His movements are careful, measured. He does not rush, does not jolt her, does not handle her roughly. He carries her as though she were fragile, as though she mattered, as though her life had value. He reaches the bed, bends carefully, lowers her onto the clean white sheets. The mattress gives slightly under her weight. He adjusts her position, making sure she is comfortable, making sure her airway is clear. He takes the pillow and places it under her head, adjusting the angle so her breathing will be easier. He pulls the blanket up, tucking it in at the sides with practiced efficiency. His hands as he does this are gentle, not tender exactly, not affectionate, but gentle. The hands of a healer who has touched 10,000 sick bodies and learned to touch them as though they were precious, because once you start treating bodies as disposable, you stop being a healer and become something else. He steps back, turns to the nurse. His voice is calm, matter-of-fact, already moving to the next task. Start her on penicillin immediately. IV fluids. Oxygen if her saturation drops below 90%. Monitor vitals every 2 hours. I want to know immediately if her condition changes. Yes, sir. He turns to a chemi who is still standing beside the bed, her hands clasped in front of her, her face struggling to maintain composure. You will assist with her care. You know what to watch for. A chemi nods. She does not trust her voice to speak. Good. Make sure she stays hydrated. Make sure the IV does not infiltrate. Call me if anything concerns you. Another nod. Dr. Harrison picks up his clipboard and prepares to continue his rounds. As far as he is concerned, the matter is settled. Patient on floor, patient now in bed, problem solved. He has 16 other patients to check on before lunch. He takes 3 steps toward the next bed, and then someone begins to sob. The sound comes from Reiko. She stands with both hands pressed against her mouth, but the sound comes anyway. Breaking through her fingers, breaking through her control, breaking through everything. It is not a quiet cry. It is a deep, wrenching sob that comes from somewhere below her lungs, somewhere deeper than breathing, somewhere in the core of her being where certainties used to live. The sound is raw, primal, the sound of something fundamental breaking apart. And once it starts, it cannot be stopped. One by one, the other Japanese women begin to cry. Not polite tears, not restrained weeping, but uncontrollable sobbing that shakes their bodies, that bends them forward, that drops some of them to their knees right there on the ward floor. Akemi's face crumples. She who has stayed strong through field hospitals and amputations and watching men die in her arms, she who maintained her composure through capture and imprisonment and letters from home, describing starvation, she breaks. Tears stream down her face. Her shoulders shake. She grips the edge of the bed to stay upright. One woman collapses completely, dropping to her knees, her hands over her face, sobbing so hard she cannot breathe. Another leans against the wall, sliding down until she is sitting on the floor, arms wrapped around her knees, crying like a child. Even the women who tried to maintain the old certainties, who insisted that American kindness was manipulation, who clung to loyalty to the emperor as their last defense against confusion, even they are crying now. Because this cannot be explained away. This cannot be dismissed. This happened. They saw it happen, and it breaks something in them that can never be repaired. The sound fills the ward, echoes off the walls. A sound like grief, like relief, like rage, like gratitude, like every emotion they have suppressed for 4 months, hitting them all at once with the force of physical blow. Your Harrison stops mid-step. He turns back, confusion clear on his stern face. He looks at the weeping women, looks at the nurses who seem equally bewildered, looks at the translator who is standing with his mouth open, unable to process what he is witnessing. "What's wrong?" Dr. Harrison asks, genuine bewilderment in his voice. "What did I do?" The translator recovers enough to speak to the women in Japanese. The doctor wants to know what is wrong. "Why are you crying?" Akemi tries to answer. Her voice breaks. She tries again, switching to the halting English she has been practicing in secret for months. You lifted her." The words come out choked, barely intelligible. "You touched her. You carried her like she mattered." Dr. Harrison's frown deepens. He genuinely does not understand. "Of course I did. She's my patient." He says it so simply, so matter-of-factly, as though there is no other possible answer, as though the question itself makes no sense. But we are enemies," Akemi manages. "She is Japanese. You are American. We are enemies." Harrison looks at her for a long moment. His face is still stern, but something softens slightly around his eyes. He speaks slowly, clearly, waiting for the translator to keep up. "In this hospital, there are no enemies. There are only patients and healers. That is all. War happens out there." He gestures toward the window, toward the world beyond the ward. "In here, there is only medicine, only care, only the oath I took to heal who needs healing." He pauses, then adds almost as an afterthought, "She needed to be in a bed, so I put her in a bed. It is really that simple." He turns back to his rounds, continues checking on his other patients, making notes on his clipboard, giving orders to nurses, doing his job as though nothing unusual has happened at all. But for the women, nothing will ever be the same. That night, the barracks cannot contain what has happened. The women gather in small groups, on beds on the floor, anywhere they can talk, anywhere they can try to process what they witnessed. "He touched her," someone keeps repeating. "He put his hands on her. Lifted her, an enemy woman, dying, worthless to him, and he carried her like she was precious." "Of course he did," another woman replies, and her voice holds wonder as though she is discovering something new. "To him, she is not enemy. She is person who needs help. That is what we saw. That is what they believe." Reiko sits on her bed with her journal, open pen in hand, but for a long time she cannot write. Her hands are shaking. Her mind is trying to find words for something that feels beyond language. Finally, she begins. January 11, 1946. "Today I watched an American doctor carry a dying Japanese woman to a clean bed. He used his own hands. He did not hesitate. He did not show disgust. He simply did what needed to be done because she was a human being who required care. In Japan, I watched wounded soldiers left to die in hallways because there were not enough resources and some lives were worth more than others. I watched prisoners executed rather than treated. I participated in a system that assigned value to human life based on nationality and utility. And now I have seen the enemy demonstrate a different value system. One that says a person is a person, regardless of everything else. Father, if you can hear me, you were wrong about everything, about Americans, about civilization, about who the barbarians really were. I do not know what to do with this knowledge. It hurts too much. It changes too much. But I cannot unknow it. I cannot pretend I did not see what I saw. My entire worldview was built on lies. And I do not know how to rebuild around this truth. But I must try. Because this truth is real, and the lies are dead, and I cannot bring Father back to show him what I have learned. So I will live with it, and remember. And never forget the moment when an enemy's hands proved gentler than my own people's words. She closes the journal. Around her, the conversations continue into the night. Some women weep still, others speak in hushed, wondering tones. A few sit in silence, processing alone what they cannot yet share. They have been changed, transformed. The old certainties are gone. The new ones have not yet formed. They exist in a space between neither who they were nor who they will become, suspended in the moment after everything breaks and before anything new begins to grow. But they are alive. And Sachiko is alive. And that means something. That means everything. Over the next 3 weeks, Sachiko slowly improves. The penicillin fights the infection. The oxygen eases her breathing. The IV fluids rehydrate her. Dr. Harrison checks on her daily, adjusting treatment, monitoring progress with the same careful attention he gives all his patients. Akemi is allowed to assist with her care. She learns things she never learned in Japan: proper dosing of antibiotics, how to manage an IV line, how to use modern medical equipment. Dr. Harrison teaches her patiently, explaining each procedure, answering her questions with the same professional courtesy he shows everyone. One afternoon, as they are adjusting Sachiko's oxygen, Akemi asks the question that has been burning in her mind. "Why do you teach me? Why do you save her? We are your enemies." Dr. Harrison looks at her for a moment. Then he speaks, and the translator conveys his words carefully. "The war is over in here. In this hospital, we do not have enemies. We have patients and we have healers. That is all. I teach you because you want to learn and because you are good at this. I save her because that is my job and because every life has value. It is really that simple." He continues with his work, but adds one more thing. "I know what you were taught about us. I know what propaganda does. But I hope you will judge us by what you see, not what you were told. That is all I ask." Akemi bows deeply, tears sliding down her face. When she straightens, she speaks in English, the words she has been practicing for weeks, waiting for the right moment. "Thank you. I see. I understand." Dr. Harrison nods, the smallest smile touching his stern face. Then he returns to his work, leaving Akemi standing there, transformed in ways she is only beginning to understand. By the first week of February, Sachiko is well enough to return to the barracks. She is weak still, moves slowly, but she is alive. The other women gather around her bed that first night, wanting to hear what it was like, wanting to understand. Sachiko speaks quietly, her voice still recovering its strength. "When I was lying on that floor burning with fever, I prayed for death. I thought it would be easier. But he picked me up. He carried me as though I weighed nothing, as though I mattered. And in that moment, I understood that I had been wrong about everything. We were told we were superior, that our way was the only way, that the enemy was less than human. But I have been shown more humanity by the enemy than I ever received from those who claimed to care for me. What does that mean? What do we do with that truth? The women have no answers, but they do not need answers. They need to acknowledge what happened, to bear witness to their transformation, to accept that they can never go back to who they were before. The war is over. But for these women, a new kind of battle has just been won. Not with weapons, not with violence, but with one doctor's decision to carry a dying woman to a bed. With one moment of simple human decency that proved more powerful than years of propaganda. They do not know what comes next. They do not know when they will go home or what they will find there. But they know this: they have seen something true, something real, something that cannot be taken away. And that knowledge will sustain them through whatever comes after.